First, I just want to get a couple of things out of the way. I don't have any answers, just in case you were wondering. I might, if we're lucky, have some homemade tools and tips, and there probably will be some bad language in advance. Okay, right. Does anyone remember seeing this tweet? Anyone with mental health issues? Anyone suffer from depression? No, okay, it was just me.
I've seen it, yeah.
You seen it? Okay, yeah. I suspect we might be in a little bit of an echo chamber here, and actually, I don't think that sentiment, that viewpoint, is that unusual out there in the world, certainly in the world of social media. Fortunately, not everyone agrees with that. Which is nice. I've got a second question then. Having seen what this tweet says, is there anyone here who feels some affinity with that viewpoint, who identifies with that sentimental viewpoint? And we are amongst friends here, so please be completely honest. Okay, I do. Is it really? Thank you. 2 people, come on. 3, 4, I like it. A few people, 5, okay. I grew up around mental health issues, mental illness in my family, and looking back at it in hindsight, I think I was fantastically unsympathetic, I have to say. I think it's partly just because I'm a confirmed skeptic. I most certainly do not believe in this stuff, okay? Don't even get me started on this stuff, okay? This is what I believe, right? Because I can see it, yeah? Okay, the cause and effect is really clear and obvious. So I think that presents a bit of a problem if the illness that you have, if your version of the broken leg is actually going on, or at least originates here in the brain. The brain is apparently, according to someone much more knowledgeable than me, the most complex system in the known universe, and yet we know less about it than we do about distant star systems. Okay, and so a lot of what's going on there is hidden. I think the hidden nature of it was quite nicely summed up by someone who has famously suffered from mental illness problems, Ruby Wax. What she said was, you don't have any lumps, you don't have any scars, you're not in a wheelchair. She goes on to say, so you will know when you've got it, but the point is nobody will believe you, and that is a kind of horror of it all. And anyone who's had mental illness issues, or been close to someone who has, which I suspect is most of us, can probably identify with that. And that the kind of hidden horror, there's a kind of weird sort of parallel thing going on for a lot of people. Certainly it went on for me for many, many years, as Georgie said, which is that, you know, some days just getting from bed to the sofa was the most you could manage. The thought of getting from the sofa to getting dressed, to set a foot outside the door, to making eye contact with people, to talking to people, to getting on public transport, to get to work, and then when you get to work to smile, like, to make sure that, make everyone think that everything's okay. That just felt like an insurmountable challenge. And if you did manage it, it drained every single last drop of energy out of you. And yet what people see on this side is just the outward face, it's the smile. It's just a smile, right? It's easier to smile than it is to frown apparently. So there's that kind of hidden struggle going on there. And I don't know, certainly my life on the outside, I think if you look at the outside, is pretty good. And I suppose it made me think of, I don't know, what I might call kind of like the Aleppo problem, right? You know, I haven't lost half my family. I haven't been bombed out of my home. I haven't had to flee my home city for fear of my life. This dude, right, he's probably got something to feel pretty damn bad about, yeah? I live in East Dulwich, right? I've got nothing to feel bad about. And so that, I think, leads, for me at least, has led to quite a lot of this. And certainly for people who suffer from depression, I know that it's been said that the shame, the guilt you feel about feeling so bad with no apparent outward reason can be as bad as the illness itself. And certainly I felt for most of my adult life an awful lot of that shame. And yet, if you're suffering from mental ill health, the kind of company you find yourself in, it's actually pretty good company, right? That's not company that I would be ashamed to be in. These people are creators, inspirers, leaders, groundbreakers, proper role models. On the outside, their lives seem great, but they've all got some kind of inner struggle going on. And one of them said something that struck a chord with me. Anyway, tell me one last thing, said Harry. Owen, is this real, or has this been happening inside my head? To which Dumbledore replies, of course it's happening inside your head, Harry. Owen. But why on earth should that mean it's not real? Which I guess has led me to sort of the first lesson that I've learned, which is this, that just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there, right? That might seem blindingly obvious to you guys. What, we waited for the first 5 minutes to talk to hear that? Wow. But it took me the best part of 2 decades to get there, from mental health, total bollocks, to actually maybe there's something in it. And during that couple of decades, I lost a lot, but I've got there. And I suppose the first thing off the back of that I would invite you to consider about taking back to your workplaces is, how can you combat this hidden problem, this hidden challenge? And I would suggest that one thing you could do is to make a really big, visible, tangible commitment. Right? Make it visible, and of course you've got to back it up with action, but make it visible, okay? I had a chat with someone a little while ago, and they said, oh, we're doing loads of really good stuff about mental health behind the scenes. I was like, yeah, that's kind of the problem, right? Like Georgie said, this is too big an issue to do stuff behind the scenes. So, like, for example, I'm not a big fan of big high street banks, but I was quite impressed with, on the left there, the campaign that Lloyd's did with, I think it was Rethink Mental Illness, around Get the Inside Out. Get people talking, get the conversation going. And if you haven't got the budget to hire a bunch of stars and do a big ad campaign, I was also quite impressed by the thing on the left, which was a tweet from someone who just joined a new organisation, and they said, wow, so impressed that we've got mental health first aiders. You have no idea what a big difference that makes to someone who's got mental illness. You take this stuff seriously, and actually not just to people who suffer from mental ill health, but to everyone. What that says about you as a business and an organisation. So, that's the first thing. I've got a quick sip of water. The second thing. And so I can roughly divide, I'm not going to be 50 later on this year, and I can roughly divide my life into 3 slightly unequal parts. The time when I was well, the time when I was unwell, but I didn't know I was unwell, and then the time when I was diagnosed. And when I was diagnosed, it was really it was like there had been a door next to me that I'd never seen that was suddenly open. Like, shit, this stuff I've been feeling, it's got a name. This emptiness and pain, wow, there are symptoms and I've got them, and there are other people who've got it. It was amazing. But actually stepping through that door onto the other side, actually I think where I am now has been harder since I've been diagnosed in a lot of respects, because I was so naive when I got the diagnosis. I was like, right, doc, give me the pills, make me better, and I'm on my way. I honestly thought it was that simple. And what I've discovered for many people is actually not that simple. And this is not my medicine cabinet, it's only in hers, but I've tried, I think, probably every single antidepressant on the market over the course of the last 12 years. I've tried a baffling array of different talking therapies, including a therapist who cried when I told him my problems. That's true. I've read around the subject. I've tried to read around the subject anyway. And I've looked on the internet. I don't know if anyone's seen the internet. Fucking hell, is it a scary place? Like literally, What's happening this week is the latest thing. It's always the opposite of the latest thing from last week, right? So like, mindfulness is the best thing. No, wait a minute, mindfulness is going to make us all ill. Oh wait, great, there's an online test. Is it going to predict the right antidepressant for me? No, wait a minute, antidepressants are just a massive con. We shouldn't be having them, right? All of this stuff left me feeling utterly overwhelmed. Okay, utterly overwhelmed. And really, what I want to do is get better. And I was no closer to getting better. And during this time, a lot of people who were close to me, including my partner who's in the audience, gently suggested to me that I might try other stuff. Have you thought about maybe diet? For example. And I think the polite answer from me was, I'm going to deal with that stuff when I'm feeling better. I don't know if that resonates with anyone who's suffering from mental health. Yeah, when I'm better, I can deal with that stuff, right? I just want to get better first. Which I understand is very flawed thinking. The slightly less polite answer was probably something like, I feel like I want to die. Stop talking about fucking blueberries. and yet, there is evidence. I like evidence that certain foods are beneficial for mental well-being. There is evidence that getting out in nature is beneficial for mental well-being. You can even see the evidence. It's fantastic, right? There is evidence that regular sleep, is beneficial for mental well-being. I've learned that actually looking out for your triggers, knowing what's going to send you downhill, and thinking about what you might do about it is beneficial, right? Whether that's going for a walk or whether it's doing a couple of minutes mindfulness. I'm shit at this, but I'm trying. And all of that, I guess, put me in mind of a podcast which someone sent me earlier on this year. I'm not very familiar with the podcast, but in this episode they wrestled with a very specific issue, which is when people are having a really bad depressive episode. There's a whole bunch of stuff they know they ought to be doing. I know I ought to get outside. Yeah, people have told me. I know I ought to eat better. I know I ought to sleep better. I know I ought not to isolate myself from all the people who care about me. But all they want to do is the opposite of that stuff. So not only are they feeling really shit, they're feeling really guilty about what they're doing about feeling shit, right? And what the podcast suggested was that, well, think of a parallel between, say, mental illness and the flu. They're not the same, but there was an interesting parallel. We do a whole bunch of stuff, the kind of lifestyle stuff I've just talked about, around the flu to help ourselves stay well, prophylactic measures to keep ourselves well when the symptoms aren't so bad. You might think of the same way about mental health. But sometimes, when you're right in the throes of it, when you're feeling terrible, all you want to do is curl up on the sofa with Netflix all day, and that's okay. Don't beat yourself up about that. I think the same is very much true of mental health. So, the second thing that I learned along the way is like, while you're sweating the big stuff, don't forget about the everyday stuff as well. It's super important. And I'm trying really hard to incorporate some of those things like food and sleep and exercise. And the second thing I would invite you guys to think about off the back of that is this, which is how can you make good mental health an everyday habit for people at work? Okay? Not just for people who suffer from mental ill health, but for everyone. At Wolff Olins, where I work, I think we have always been fortunate and maybe forward-thinking enough to understand that happy people make better work. And we have a range of well-being things that we do, which are all grouped under the rather snappy title of Wolff Olins Wellbeing, or WOW. And on the right-hand side here is a list of some of the physical activities that we provide for our folks. We're lucky, we're only 100 or so people, so it's easy enough to do that. And on the left-hand side is something that we call WOW Snack. Which on the face of it is just a healthy snack in the middle of the afternoon, right, 3:30. It's to stop people going to the corner shop and buying a can of Coke and a sugary treat. So it's just a healthy snack, but it is so much better than putting a bowl of fruit on top of the lockers. And the reason why is because it's just nice enough that when people get the email, they get up, they walk to the other side of the office, they stand up, they have a chat with their colleagues, they have a little snack, they get away from their computer for 10 minutes, change of scene, change of environment, and it is a daily ritual at work. It's so much more than just. It's not really about the food, kind of about the food, but it's so much more than that. Okay, so everyday stuff. 3. Okay, 3 words that strike terror into my heart. I'm sorry, guys. I spent so much of my life doing stuff that I thought I ought to do because that's what normal, like people who aren't unwell do. Yeah, you've got to go network. That's what people do. You've got to go to the pub after work on a Friday. This is what normal people do. So I'd go. I didn't really want to be there, or I wouldn't go, and then I'd beat myself up for not going. And I guess actually I think I've got a bit better at handling that. My therapist who I have now says stuff like, maybe you should try to manage my expectations. Maybe this is how it is for you. And I normally say something like, listen, if you had to spend 10 minutes in here, you wouldn't accept how it is. You want it to be different. And then she says something like, maybe if you're a bit more accepting about how it is, it wouldn't be so bad, isn't it? And then I normally grumble and frown, but I kind of know, and she knows I know, that she's sort of got a point. Right? And so I'm trying to be more accepting of how things are for me and what works for me. Hands up who knows what this means. Oh, come on. Yes, I know you know. No one? Right.
The joy of missing out.
The joy of missing out. So I love this. Someone introduced this to me last year. The joy of missing out. It's great. So now I'll say, yeah, I'll go to the pub for one, and then I go home. You know why? I don't like pubs. Actually, I do like pubs. I only like people. I can even say that to people at work. I'm not really a peoply person, and actually people are right with it. They go, actually, I'm not either. Anyway, so I feel I'm not into disco, but I do feel that I can kind of identify with this. I'm much more comfortable in my own skin because I'm being more accepting of how things are and what works for me. I had a bit of a downturn last year, and one of the things I committed to do during this time, if all that other stuff I just talked about is about me being honest with myself about how things are, I committed to being a bit more honest with the people around me about how things are. Okay, so I talked to my partner, I talked to my mum, I talked to my brother about just how bad things had actually got for me, which I hadn't really shared before. And with the greatest respect to those people, actually the most challenging and significant conversations I had, I think, were with my children and my work colleagues. And the reason is because I had shared nothing of my illness at all. With my kids, my son's 18, my daughter's 16, my work colleagues of 22 years, nothing, right? Like, my kids are stupid, they must have known what was going on, but I think partly it was because I felt I was in a position of sort of authority or responsibility, I suppose. I'd grown to a level of seniority at Wolff Olins. I thought, well, people won't follow me if they think I'm weak, if they think I can't hack it. My kids won't respect me, they won't look up to me if they think I'm weak. And I sat down with my kids and I talked to them. And my son said, what are the symptoms? And I talked to him about hopelessness and lack of motivation and what's the point of life. And he said, Dad, it's just like being a teenager. I don't know what to say. It's fair enough. And on the work front, this was the start, which was while I was off work for about a month, a friend and colleague texted me and said, how you doing? And I wrote that reply in green in the middle there, and I didn't send it. I couldn't send it. And I was sick, and I couldn't send it. And I sat there for a couple of hours, I couldn't send it. And eventually I just sent it. And it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. He was pretty matter of fact about it. Let's go for a pint. But it was great. It was really a moment of catharsis. It's like, wow, the sky didn't fall in. And I went back to work and I said to my boss, I'm going to talk to people about my mental illness. I'm going to stand up, and I did. And I gave a talk, not unlike what I'm doing now, to everyone at work about just how things have been for me. And that was hard, but it was well worth doing. It's also hard for people at work to know what to say to someone with mental illness. I think you shouldn't underestimate how difficult it is. And it's very well me going in and blurting out all this stuff, Yes, it's hard for people. And I found a little video that I quite like that sort of sums it up. Some of you may have seen it. For those of you, I apologise. For the others, I thought this was quite funny.
Oh look, Dave from Chemist is back at work. He's been off for ages with some kind of mental illness. That's an awkward one. Should I say anything? I don't know how I react. Alright, Dave. Good to see you back. How are you feeling? How am I feeling? Hang on, it's cold. Hi, yeah! You've got some idiot here who just asked me how I'm feeling! How am I feeling? I'm feeling. Sorry, I'm just off home. I'm a bit late for dinner. Okay. See you later. I'm feeling. Pretty good, thanks. Yeah. Good days and bad days, but yeah, glad to be back at work. Cheers, man. No worries. How things with you? Yeah, very calm.
Okay, so I think that whole conversation is a difficult one, but it's one that deserves, in fact, needs to be out in the open. So I guess the third thing that I learned along my way, actually it's kind of two things. One is the acceptance is not the same as giving in. And the second thing is that opening up is not a sign of weakness. And so the third thing that I would like you guys to consider taking back to your workplaces is this, which is how can you invite your people to bring their whole selves to work? I think we don't know how much we check in at the door, right, when we go to work. We check in a whole bunch of stuff. We leave it at the door, we come into work, we present our work selves. And actually I think that diminishes individuals, that diminishes organisations, because you don't get that diversity, you don't get those rich different views. And actually, if you're thinking about mental illness, which is something that affects so many people, you're requiring them to only be half of themselves. I've been so much better at work, so much more chilled out since I was open about this stuff. So, invite your people to bring their whole selves to work. I think there's one really important thing that you can do. In fact, one thing I think you have to do to make that happen, and that's for leaders to lead by example. I think it's not invite your leaders to lead by example. I think leaders have to lead by example. If you want your people to bring their whole selves, get the leaders to bring their whole selves to work. And there are a couple of people who sprung to mind when I thought of this. One of them I know quite well, one of them I've never met. The guy on the left is called EJ. He's my ex-boss at Wolff Olins. Not around mental health, but he always, I felt, brought his whole self to work. He instilled those values in other people. Don't be afraid of failing. Try stuff out. Experiment. It doesn't matter if it's right. Just have a go. Be yourself. Bring yourself to it. And the guy on the right is a guy called Mills, who's one of the co-founders of Us2, a digital product agency, and he's been famously very open with his business about his mental health struggles. He sent a letter to everyone in his business, and what I really like is that business puts their money where their mouth is, that they invest some of their own money in developing software and apps for mental health as well. So I think two leaders who really show up and bring their whole selves. So, three things that I ask you or encourage you to take away from this little ramble of mine. The first thing is, how can you make a really visible commitment to change, combat that hidden disease? The second one is, how can you make good mental health a habit, a routine, a ritual, not just for people who are suffering from mental health, but everyone. And third, how can you invite your people to bring their whole selves to work? And in this room, we have leaders, we've got people who have the ear of leaders within business. I think it would be a fantastic thing if we could ask those leaders ourselves to take the first step. Thank you very much.